Yep,
correct?
due to unforeseen circumstances,
Yep.
the board member cannot be here, board member Brown, so we'll be removing
The, no, it's not
item
it. I'm looking for it.
X.
Oh.
No, sorry, that's 10.
Item 10.
Yep,
Yep. We're going to move item 10 till our July meeting. So I will make a motion to approve the agenda, but with moving item 10 to the July meeting.
I'll second.
Second by Nelson. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I assume there's no open forum. Okay, on to the consent agenda. The previous minutes from the May 28th regular board meeting, the May 28th work session, the June 11th special meeting, and the June 11th work session. Claims and accounts in the amount of $426,973.68. The credit card report, the personnel report, the fundraisers, the Iowa, and the approved school calendar with the snow day added, and the approved one read policies that are listed.
So moved.
Moved by Sixberry,
Second.
second by Chevillian. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to donations. I will make a motion to approve the donations. Second by Sixberry. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And G, financial report.
Good evening, school board members. We'll start out the financial report with a final enrollment update, at least for this school year. And from April to May, or actually from May 1st to the end of the month, we did decrease one student. But we had the decrease and we actually had a decrease also in Big Lake Online, but that was offset by increases at the middle school in Liberty for a net decrease of one. But as I've been reporting every month, most every month, we are over our enrollment budget. So we're 9 ADMs over that second revised enrollment budget. So we will be ending the year on a good status with our general education aid, just because our enrollment has remained positive over our budget. You can see that graphically on the next page. That orange line is above the yellow line, so that's always good news. And I normally don't bring budget revisions this late in the year, but I had two. I felt I had to do one, this MA revenue, that's medical assistant revenue, or also called third-party billing. Payments come in real sporadic throughout the year, and we really never know how much we're going to get. Well, we got 2 large payments in May. And so I just felt, otherwise the budget just looks so far off. And then as I was budgeting for next year, so I'm asking for approval of that increase because basically there's payments that we've already received. And then the prom fees and donations, as I was working on 26's budget, in order to reconcile between 25 and 26, I just need that budget revision as well, approved as well, because otherwise it looks off between years. So all I have for this month is that total revenue increase, those 2 items of $177,102. The fund balance impact of those 2 revisions, that doesn't affect the unassigned. It's that restricted for third-party medical assistance. We have a nice revised fund balance. That money can be used to, or not to offset, that's not the right word. It can be used to buy special ed items. So for example, what we use it for is if a student needs a specialized piece of equipment, we'll take it from that money rather than hitting up the general fund for that. Excuse me, I have that wrong. The prom fees and donations did affect the unassigned fund balance. So then if you go on to the next page, then this is the revised budget. And again, this looks very similar. This is where we're projecting we're going to end up at the end of the year. So we'll have our audit in October, and then hopefully the auditors will be here in November, and we'll report on how we did as compared to budget. And then I thought I'd just spend a little bit of time on, this is probably, I guess, is old news right now, but I just thought I'd spend a little bit of time on that K-12 education finance bill. And so I'll just kind of, and what I was trying to do is kind of give you an idea of how this affects Big Lake. And so the first one, compensatory revenue, they're using the greater fiscal year 26 or fiscal year 24. That was a positive actually for Big Lake of $15,533. This is the one I am most nervous about. I think I told the Finance Committee this on Monday. This Blue Ribbon Commission on Special Education, because they must find $250 million in special education savings or a reduction in our special ed cross subsidy aid will go into effect in 28-29. I think this has the biggest impact on our future, and I'll be talking a little bit about that when I do the 26 budget presentation. Reduction in special ed transportation reimbursement, instead of 100%, we'll get 95%. I'm estimating about decrease of 66,617. The transportation of it, they call it homeless and highly mobile students. What that means is, like, for example, if we have students that go to care and treatment, that's still reimbursed at 100%. So we remained whole in that respect. LTFM revenue, we just had a meeting with Buildings and Grounds Committee, but we have that additional levy authority now for roof projects greater than 100,000 by site. And then the legislature did increase the equalization aid to offset some of the projected levy increases, but from what I've seen, it's not going to be a one-to-one. I mean, there's still going to be levy increases, but it'll help offset some of those levy increases. One other item, 100%, or is now required that 100% of our general education aid from our ALCs, that has to be transferred to our ALC, so that affects Wright Technical Center. And because right now they only bill us 90%, now we're required to pay 100%. Just using 25's numbers, I'm estimating that'll be an extra cost of $19,000. One of the discussions Tim and I have had then is that this should at least help them with their financial challenges, and perhaps maybe won't need that fund balance stabilization fee that in the past. So we'll just see how that goes. But that will actually, I mean, it's a cost to us, but it's revenue to them. And Wright Tech is part of, I mean, we're part of Wright Tech. So let's see, student support personnel aid. The reduction, so the legislature reduced the per pupil allocation. So this really, the previous law was increasing it to 4873. So it was, so basically they were reducing the increase that we were supposed to get. So for Big Lake, it reduced 64,000, but that revenue is still a 44,800 increase over 24-25. So we just didn't get as big of an increase as we were scheduled to get. School meals lowers additional state funding for school lunch. That is beginning in fiscal year 28. The state is currently paying 12.5 cents a meal for all students. They have cut that in half to 6.25 cents a meal. Again, using 25 estimates, it's a loss of about $15,500 in state funding. And that's not a deal breaker for food service. I mean, we would like to see that revenue come in so we can, reinvest in our food service program. But I mean, we can sustain that loss in funding, I think, without any changes in programming, I guess is what I'm trying to say. School library aid, they did reduce that aid. That's about a little over $20,000 decrease to Big Lake, $20,220. And they repealed what's called the telecommunications access aid. We get roughly around $12,500 a year for that. And then literacy incentive aid, they're renaming the literacy incentive aid to literacy aid. So like Minda and I have been talking, we now have 2 literacy aids. So, but that the requirements and goals, instead of listing out the allowable uses, we can use the money for the requirements and goals of the district's local literacy plan. So we've been having fun trying to keep these pots of money straight with this literacy aid. So I think I hit the highlights. I kind of wanted to hit the highlights of what affects Big Lake with the with the education finance bill. So that's all I have for the financial report. So just ask for approval, and the couple budget revisions that I presented earlier. And I can entertain any questions, or if anybody wants to add any comments about the
Yeah, I attended.
school finance bill?
Yeah, about that, I attended a superintendent session for you at that one too, Minda, this morning, that network. Yeah, it was super short. Basically, in summary, Tiffany Guskin from MSBA said, well, the biggies is that the compensatory and how it affected you, special ed, blue ribbon, to keep an eye on that kind of thing.
Yep.
But the other one too was that we were able to maintain that inflationary factor for our general ed aid was a big win, and I think people felt good about that because for a while there that was on the ropes, and I know that was in big discussion about it not being there, and that was one that we fought for. Well, my entire career, we've been fighting legislatively for that. So I don't know, Ashley, do you have anything else from legislative? She kind of summarized the
Yeah, no,
main points.
just one thing that would affect school board members
Oh,
is there was
okay.
a change to open meeting law that we can participate remotely starting August 1st without the 3-day notice and without the physical location being in a public space. So if you fall ill in the afternoon, but you feel well enough to come, but you're contagious, you can call in to the meeting. Whereas before, you could only do it if you had 3 days notice and you went to a public location where it was accessible. So all the other requirements of remote participation still exist. So you still have to be able to see everybody. So we would need a screen for that. But it did change that 3-day requirement and the public access, which is kind of nice. I have called in from a library before and I did it, but it was kind of awkward.
Yeah.
There's a little sign.
Yeah.
If you want to go to a board meeting from a different state, come on in. You're welcome to listen. But anyway, I just wanted to just make sure everyone was aware of that.
Well, Tim, and I think you said
I
it's
will
effective
verify that.
immediately, right?
Yeah,
Because
I-
they tell you,
August
yeah.
1st.
I had, at the end, when they had the question, it was the director from the city network of superintendents.
Okay.
He clarified to Terry,
Okay.
and at the end, when they were back and forth, and I swear that's what I heard, I will verify with Terry
Okay.
about when that starts.
Okay,
Maybe I
'cause,
could
yeah,
ask him
right.
to just send Terry a message, when does the open meeting law change take effect?
Because Terry Morrow was the one that was
Saying
at the
August 1st.
MSBA
At the
Yeah, 'cause I-
presentation.
presentation. It was like,
Yep, and
August
I
1st.
think later he was in a Terry way,
Yeah.
said, I've been proven wrong,
okay.
kind of thing, or
In the
something.
one today or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something. So anyway, but I will verify, we'll verify with Terry and just let you know, I'll put it in my update this week.
And that's nice, because we've had board members that have been out of town for work, and it's not like they're gonna post their hotel room.
Right.
Like, so
This would be helpful.
this will be very helpful.
Yeah. The other thing, candidate filing period was advanced by 2 weeks. We don't have anybody up for election this year, but just
Oh,
thought
they're
I'd,
starting it 2 weeks earlier?
yeah. So I just thought I'd mention those since they affect school board members.
Is it end the same,
Yes, they just made
They
it.
just want
with
it
a longer window?
So a longer window?
So
Okay.
people can think about it longer?
Isn't it like a 2-week window?
What's that?
Isn't
It used to be
currently
like 2 weeks.
2
so I
weeks,
think
now it's
now
like a
it
month.
must be 4 week, because like I said, they pushed it 2
Interesting.
weeks forward.
Yeah,
So,
that is interesting.
But yeah, I think those were the two I just wanted to mention just for board member information.
All right.
Okay, any questions for Angie? Okay, I will make a motion to approve the financial report and budget revisions as presented. Second by Sixberry. Any other discussions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. You're up again.
And I have the next one, right. So, actually, I've already noticed a typo. That should say 25-26 original budget. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I
Anyway,
looked at
I'm
it too,
presenting,
and didn't
I,
realize
do you know
that.
how many times I looked at this?
I looked at it. Oh,
It's right on the
there.
next page. Oh, my gosh.
You guys have paid attention to that first page.
Oh,
I know, because I'm like, yeah, I think we would have.
I opened it when I was at home.
I just started there.
Scroll on, because you're like,
Well, anyway, what I was to say is we went over this in a lot of detail with the finance committee on Monday, so I apologize for that typo. I will fix that and we'll reload it, so it's the right one, because we usually post this on our website as well. So with that, we'll go forward with the 25-26 budget. This is just standard language, same, I don't think this has changed in many years. The Minnesota statutes require the school board approval of a revenue and expenditure budget by June 30th of every year. And this next page, I call this, or like I told the finance committee, this is the highlight. I mean, I kind of start out with, here's how we ended up. So we start out with that beginning unassigned fund balance, and again, the unassigned fund balance is fund balance available for operations. And then we end up with an ending unassigned fund balance of a little over 7.5 million. We are still in compliance with our minimum operating fund balance policy. It's 17.6%, but we do have a deficit. We have a deficit in the unassigned general fund balance of 1.9 million. Now, what I have here also, as we mentioned, it was critical that we got that inflationary increase in gen ed aid. However, that's not enough, and that's why we have to go out for an operating levy referendum, because this deficit is not sustainable. Even though we have a fund balance that can support it right now, a deficit like that is not sustainable.
And what's interesting is,
Go ahead.
that's the approximate amount that we're asking for in our operating levy.
Yeah,
So it's interesting as we move into the future.
Yeah.
Considering that election, that this is what we deficit spent, this is what we're asking for.
Right,
So it's very
right.
similar, not exact, but pretty close.
right, yeah.
To
Yeah, it's
what
not
we're
exact, but it is pretty close, like you said. And then I just went over all those legislative changes, which included some cuts to funding. And so that has all been incorporated into this budget, because I did have the information ahead of time that I was able to, well, plus we kind of had a heads up of what was going to be going on anyway. So this next page is so this is what you see every month. But this is the budget that you will approve then at the end of the presentation. So we can just kind of keep going there, John. Thank you. So what I like to do is just talk a little bit more about components of each fund. General fund revenues, total revenues a little over 49 million. Biggest part, gen ed aid. Again, that 2.74%. And then the next biggest component of gen ed aid is our compensatory revenue. And that, as I mentioned before, that was in question, whether we were going to be getting that same amount or if that was going to be cut. But we actually had a positive result from that, from legislation. And then I just list there for the board our budgeted ADM for right now, but we have like an enrollment projection model, talk with Teresa about what we should do for kindergarten assumptions, so we have 222. This is a 19 ADM decrease because our kindergarten class coming in is smaller than the grade 12 graduating. So, and I know last time we talked with Teresa, we think we're on track for kindergarten. We'll know more in August, and then I'll report that at our August meeting.
Sorry, I should have asked this on Monday. Do they know how much less than the current 12th grade? Like, is it pretty substantial?
Oh, yeah, let's see, the graduating class off the top of my head, I think it's like 240-ish, something like that. And then, yeah, well, I have here 19, yeah, it's, because that's the main reason for the total less ADMs. So we're graduating like a 240 class, and then incoming projecting 222. Let's see, next biggest component of general ed revenues is special ed aid. And again, I have that 95% proration of the transportation aid. And again, the cross subsidy, like we said, that was threatened too, but that remains at 44%. And that is based, so our aid next year is based on 2025 costs. Property tax levy, 8.8 million. That includes that 1.3 million that was levied last year for our LTFM or air quality project. And then I just want to point out federal aid. So that is a lot less than in the past because we don't have ESSER grants anymore, the COVID relief grants. So it's mainly our title grants and our PCN grant and federal special aid through the co-op. We had a very large decrease in Title I funding. And then we did get an email from the Minnesota Department of Education that the main reason for that was we had a decrease in students identified as poverty in the title calculation. So it was a significant decrease, well over 100,000, wasn't it, Minda? I think it was. Yeah, it was a significant decrease, but we've adjusted and.
Well, I
I have not seen all the allocations because they don't even have all the
Yeah,
allocations.
yeah, it was just tight, yeah, you're right,
Not sure how to, like,
yeah.
how to answer that, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fine. So, so we're using those preliminary that they gave us, so. This is just a graph and similar to those truth and taxation graphs, and we lost them. But anyway, the biggest piece of the pie, if you remember what it looked like, is that state aid. Most of our revenue comes from state aid. And that is common and very similar to prior years. Up there it is, there it's back. And with that, we'll talk about expenditures. If you can advance, yeah, there you go. Okay, total expenditures, a little over 53 million, 53.6 million. Salaries and benefits make up the majority of expenditures, 40.3 million. 2 new positions that were approved by the school board back in February. Still factoring in summer term unemployment costs, but we do have funding, so that also came out of legislation. Purchase services is the next largest component. That is transportation, but includes transportation, utilities, repairs, property liability insurance, and then we have our new rates in there for year 1 of our transportation contract. And then the next one is supplies, capital, and other. That's 5.6 million, and that includes like curriculum, technology, capital projects. So that is kind of the biggest components of our expenditures. And we got I call a couple ways to show this graphically. This is expenditures by program area. So like each area, there's administration, district support. If you add up all of the regular instruction, vocational instruction, like all the instruction-related categories, that's about 80%. And we, of course, want most of our budget to go towards education and support of our students. So I just want to mention real quickly the sites and buildings. The normal, just because we have that pool dehumidification project. So because of that percent is elevated more than it normally is. But because of that project that was levied last year and we're doing now this year. And then the next graph, this is how we're spending the money. And again, because we're a service-oriented business, mostly in salaries and benefits. So the salaries and benefits equals a little over 75%. That percent is typically in schools 75 to 80%. So we're actually in that normal area as other school districts. And again, you know, we have more cost in the purchase services component and in capital because of that pool dehumidification project. So then results. So the total general fund, not just unassigned, this is total general fund, a little over 4.3 million. And I already talked about that unassigned deficit. And I'm going back to my cheat sheet. So the other part of that deficit is a decrease in our LTFM, operating capital, and tech levy reserves, basically capital reserves. This is all planned. And then a little over $1 million decrease in our other restricted assigned fund balances. And a lot of that is like curriculum purchases, planned spend down of our compensatory revenue and third-party medical assistance reserves. And as I mentioned before, we come down to that unassigned fund balance. And as I mentioned, 17.6%, still in compliance with our fund balance policy. And we'll segue into the other funds, the food service fund. There's your revenues and expenditures. We're in our universal free meals. Incorporated into the expenditure budget is a little over $300,000 of equipment investment. We have like a capital replacement plan for food service, so we are in year 3 of that. And I identified what we have on our plan for this year: some kitchen flooring, Little Liberty in the middle school dishwasher, middle school and high school walk-in freezers and coolers, and middle school kettles. And the Community Service Fund, this would have been, Stephanie reviews this with the Community Ed Advisory Council in May. Small deficit for the total fund, projecting ending balance of a little over 1.1 million. On to the next fund, building construction fund. So this is, we are in our final year of the 2021 bond referendum projects. So that little bit of revenue is a little bit of investment income we'll probably take in, and then the expenditures are that final phase, and that's all the middle school renovations, which I know TJ just went over a lot of those renovations with the Building and Grounds Committee before this meeting. So hopefully that fund will be spent. Debt service fund, this is our district mortgage payments, and this is a highly regulated fund. Levy is restricted to what we are allowed to levy 5% in excess of our bond payments. And again, it's regulated by MDE. So it's just, that's all it accounts for, that debt service fund is those mortgage payments. And then other funds, we have the irrevocable trust fund. This is money from proceeds from our 2009 OPEB bonds. Those bonds are paid off. Revenues is that investment income, and then the expenditures are eligible other post-employment benefit expenditures. This helps out the general fund because if we couldn't take it from the OPEB trust fund, that money would have to be taken from the general fund. So that OPEB trust fund actually benefits the general fund. Keeps some of the expenditures down. And I end the presentation, I call it factors bearing on the district's future. We have the uncertainty of compensatory funding beyond fiscal year 25-26. We were held harmless for 25-26. They've created a task force to evaluate the formula and how it'll be allocated, so we'll see how that comes out. We were winners, or not winners, I don't think that's the right word, but general education aid increases will continue to be tied to inflation. That's that minimum of 2%, maximum of 3%. But yeah, because like I mentioned here, it was threatened during the last legislative session. Again, as I mentioned before, this is the one that makes me the most nervous, this Blue Ribbon Commission on Special Education, because if they don't find that savings, they're going to cut the cross-subsidy aid. We are currently in labor negotiations. That's just an FYI. We, of course, have assumptions in our budget, but that is ongoing. And then biggest one is probably the outcome of our operating levy and bond referendum election. I'd say that is probably the biggest factor right now in our future is that election that's coming up in November. So I just conclude by our unassigned fund balance that complies with the district's fund balance policy and is acceptable to bond rating agencies. That's important because if we keep our bond rating as is, that's cheaper for our taxpayers when we issue future bonds, because then your interest rate isn't as high. So then I list out for the school board, if you remember that worksheet that you see every month, I need your approval of total revenue of $60,241,201, total expenditures $66,779,373. So I list a total district deficit, but I add back, and I think I started doing this a few years ago at the request of the board. I add back like those construction and capital projects. So the net district deficit then is at $2.848 million. But I am asking for approval of the revenue and expenditure budget as presented. I think that's it. Yes, slide 17.
I'll make the motion to approve the revenue and expenditure, so the revenue is 60
million.
Thank you. $243,201. The expenditures are $66,779,000. I might not talk, I'm sorry. 373. So I'll make the motion to approve that. Apologize for stumbling.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Sixbury, second by Nelson. Are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
MSHSL.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, this is an annual renewal form for Big Lake High School to participate and with Minnesota State High School League activities. Would recommend approval.
This is we do this every
Correct.
year, so that's pretty normal. I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Sixbury. Second by Hancock. Since it's a resolution, roll call vote. Okay. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Nelson.
Aye.
Sixthbury?
Aye.
Reesner, aye. Chevillion?
Aye.
Hancock? The motion, or the resolution passes. Thank you. On to the next one. Approve resolution to recertify district population estimate.
Yes, so this resolution is before you to approve an increase in our population. It's defined pretty well within that resolution from 20,683 to 20,864. By doing this, this does allow us access some additional funds for our early childhood programs. So, but again, would recommend approval of this resolution.
Tim, it's for all community.
Sorry, all community ed
Yeah,
program, my
yeah.
fault. Thank you.
I'll make the motion to approve the recertification of the census resolution for 2025.
Okay, motion made by Sixthbury,
Second.
second by Chevillion. Any other discussions? Okay, it's a roll call vote. Nelson?
Aye.
Sixthbury?
Aye.
Reesner, aye. Chevillion?
Aye.
Hancock? The resolution passes. Okay, field trip annual review.
All right, so we have a nice little one pager. So you can see the field trips that were taken by our K through 8 students this year. Again, our high school is kind of its own little thing just because they do more things that are aligned to their curriculums. But our field trips this year were sponsored by PTO from both Liberty and Indy and Spudfest. And so you can see our kindergartners take a walking field trip, which then helps them because if there was an emergency at Liberty, they would need to walk over to Indy. So it kind of gets them halfway there. Then they also go out to Eastman Nature Center. First graders go to Big Lake Library and to Como Zoo. And then second graders go to Pioneer Park. And then they also come over to Indy for their transition day at the end of the year. At Independence, our third through fifth graders went to Oliver Kelly Farm. Fourth graders went to Coon Rapids Dam Regional Park, and this was kind of a unique situation, which I think we're going to get to replicate again next year, where they actually get 3 field trips out of this. So they get to go and they get to work with scientists, and so it became a little bit more involved than when we first signed up, so that was a really neat experience for them. Our fifth graders go to the Science Museum. And then at the middle school, now remember our middle school does not have a PTO, and so Spudfest did pay for admissions and transportation for middle school kids. So they went to the state capitol in Fort Snelling. The 7th graders went to Camp Friendship in Annandale, and our 8th graders went to the Minnesota Historical Society and or US Bank or Mill City Museum. So that's not all on there, but so we did go to Spudfest again, and we are happy to report that they did approve to sponsor both of our field trip transportations and admissions, and so that leaves PTO to be able to do some other fun things for our elementary students. And so Spudfest did approve that, and so they are going to be submitting a check for $43,000 over the course of the year to support this for our families. So next year, there's a couple that are thinking they might change field trips, but Back to School Workshop Week is always fun field trip talk, and so we will be reporting in the fall what we plan to do next year. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, first reading of policies.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the board, they're pretty self-explanatory. We did meet, and these were what we ended up coming to a conclusion to move forward for first read. So would encourage you to take a look at that as they move through the reading process for policies.
Okay. School board committees representative updates, finance committee.
Angie pretty much hit on that. We reviewed the 2025, 26 budget, basically. So,
And policy committee, we met, and the first policies are the ones we're moving forward. Buildings and grounds.
Yep, and
TJ's gonna
yeah,
talk.
TJ, if there's questions, otherwise I'll just kind of go through the agenda here, TJ, if you want to. Yeah, we met this evening, had a wonderful meeting and a wonderful discussion. We did a quick review of the bond projects with a budget update and a review. We also highlighted the hail claim progress update, which, by the way, is scheduled to be done within a week or two.
Hopefully next Friday, they'll be completely done and gone.
And since there is never going to be hail again in the weather, we're going to be fine with that. I'm just kidding. But I know, exactly. I don't even know why I said that. I don't know why I said it. I'm sorry. Okay. I know, exactly, right? We also did talk about the LTFM future bond, additional levy authority, much having to do with the new legislation, and talked about some different repairs and things. LTFM plan will be brought forward next month in July. It is required by July 30th to be approved by the board. They are almost there. They're just waiting on a couple different numbers on some roofing things, as I recall. But again, that gives us some information on LTFM and our facilities maintenance dollars. And then we also reviewed some facility improvements that included some conversation around the purchase of a couple shipping containers. You may have noticed them behind the press box at the football field. But the Baseball Association, as well as Activities, has requested to purchase some additional. They are much more durable than some of the wooden sheds that we currently have. And what's being proposed is that there was an image shared of a blue with yellow edges, so it actually would look pretty sharp in terms of kind of staying with our theme of our colors and whatnot, so there wouldn't be anything too ugly sitting out there. But had a good conversation and ended on time, so it was good. That was buildings and grounds. Did I cover it, TJ? All right.
Were those containers going to be permanently located where they are, or?
We have a map of where where these are. You stay put. It's all good. You can kind of see the location.
Got it, where they're gonna end up.
Yes.
Well, and technically,
Yep.
because they're not on like a foundation, they're movable, so they won't be considered permanent.
It wouldn't be permanent, they would just replace the current sheds. So the one is an addition, and we'd have to find a home for that. And for the Baseball Association, it's to store all of their portable pitching mounds. Because right now they sit out all winter, which is really hard on them, so they're working on replacing those. And they wanna have a safe place for those out of the sun and away from the critters. The other two would basically take place of where a current shed is. We're gonna remove that shed, put that on the public surplus auction. If it sells, great. If not, we'll have to tear it down. Some of them are in pretty rough shape. And then in that roughly that same location is where we locate the shipping container. So,
Do they have to be put on blocks or something to keep from flooding, or?
yep, we put them
Are
up
they
on,
enough?
we put them up on like 6x6 chunks of blocks. Yep. But they're all waterproof and
Yeah.
rodent proof is the big thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the big thing, the road
That's the
improvement.
biggest thing, keep all the critters out of there. It's been a saving grace for our track equipment. That was our first investment in them, was for track equipment.
Pads and stuff.
Over the years, all of our track equipment always was full of mice, remnants, surprises.
Yeah, for the pits and all the cushions and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty easy.
Kept them very
They
nice.
made some nice homes.
Yes, they do. It was a good meeting.
Any other school board representative meetings?
And then Right Tech, we met really very, very briefly, and it was just to end, turn things over. Brian retired, as well as Dana, his support staff, so, we have replacements for that. We're looking forward to them coming on, but we won't have a meeting again until August. We don't have a July meeting. So, it was basically just celebrating the retirement.
And then we did meet for negotiations. I think we met 3 times now. So things are going well. I mean, it's cordial, it's professional. I know Derek and Ashley were in attendance, and they have not responded with financial packages, but they did respond with some language proposals that did include some financial implications.
numbers,
Yeah,
those
it's a lot of pages.
language.
But and so it goes. The first proposals are always a lot, and we whittle it down. But we are well on the way of process. Like I said, it's cordial, and we are hoping to make some progress. I think we've got a meeting coming up here in a few weeks, just the committee, just to kind of debrief the proposal, and then I think the next meeting is on July 29th. So hope to share more good news after that. That's the official meeting with Blem is on July 29th. So trying to proceed as best we can. I don't think there was any other reps.
The SAF
Yeah.
Executive Board has met multiple times. We did renew our contract with Capitol Hill Associates for lobbying. They felt that, the lobbyist we have assigned to us, has a lot of good connections with a lot of legislators that tend to be skeptical of public education taxes, so they've made a lot of good connections there. Kind of been going through some interesting brainstorming about different ways to improve the equalization component in a different way. So more to come on that. We're gonna do a little research on a different strategy. So things are happening. It's a very active group, even in the off legislative season, trying to figure out how we can best capitalize our taxpayer dollars and get the best we can for our kids here in Big Lake. So,
Yep, and I just received an email too, and I'll maybe forward the letter as well, from my association. Deb Henton put out a letter expressing strong opposition to the Educational Choice for Children Act that's currently under consideration. Pretty close to what's being described as vouchers. So I'll keep you posted on that long-term if there's any additional information, but I'll perhaps just share the opposition letter so you kind of know the perspective from MSBA as well as MASA. I know Kirk Schneiderwin signed it as well. So just legislatively speaking, just so you know, it's kind of out there and being discussed again. I just received that 4 hours ago. So that's on the legislative side.
Okay, any other committees? Okay, on to the superintendent report.
Yes, Madam Chair, I do have a few items for you this evening. I wanted to just remind you, and actually kind of recall, in MEA last year, we had a program, we housed it here called Community Connect, and that is run through United Way and Kat Surf is her name, I believe. We hosted it here. We had a great turnout. It was a great event. This was where they handed out free boots and shoes and all kinds of different resources and things. I just wanted to get it on your radar. I've been invited to attend a few meetings. They are hoping to continue that on October 16th of this coming year. And but because they had so many, they were running out of things. So they are planning for a bigger event because it went over so well. So I just kind of want to get that on your radar. It is the Thursday of MEA. And like I said, it seemed to meet the needs of a lot of our community members that were in need. So I just want to get it on your radar. Also want to remind you of our summer hours in the district office, and more so, I know I put it on some weeklies and whatnot, but Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4, and then we are closed on Fridays. But also, I just want to, obviously, if people want to reach out and let us know, we are available for people for phone calls and whatnot if we need to. So I just want to kind of remind people of that. And last but not least, I want to just give a quick referendum update. Food shelf. I have been working with the attorney as well as Sandy from the Food Shelf in trying to come together to create an agreement that can be appropriate for all parties involved. Obviously, I want to make sure that our attorneys are okay with it, and obviously from the Food Shelf perspective, they want to make sure it meets their needs as well. Needless to say, it's been a bit of a challenging process, but we're still working through that, and I'm still hopeful because, for example, today I just met face-to-face with Sandy this morning, and we had 10 kind of items from the agreement that she wanted to address, and from that, we were able to whittle it down to 4. So we're making progress. So my hope is to have the agreement before the board at next month's meeting, because I do think that's an important partnership, not only for the needs of our community, but also for the programming for our students as well as our efforts with the elections. So I want to make sure we give it our best effort, but like I said, this is a bit of uncharted territories, so it's a bit of a challenge to kind of mesh the two. But we're working through it, and I'm working with the attorney and communicating with Sandy, and Sandy's working with her board, and I'm trying to, so I will send you an update at the end of this week with our latest version, once I can get a hold of the attorney, because I'm continuously kind of going back and forth with them. So that's the update on the food shelf. Also, I wanted to just mention, following the July board meeting, we'll tentatively, I haven't run it by, I'm assuming it's okay. But I'm hoping to have a work session following the regular board meeting around a draft of a communications plan for the upcoming election. And just so the board is mostly aware of that piece and can provide some opportunity for some feedback. But to build that plan, as well as to get the board kind of hands involved a little bit more with some of these efforts, I am proposing that we create up a group if it could be a committee, because I would say up to 3 board members, if you are interested in participating in a communications subgroup. I would throw out an invite to any board members that might be interested. And like I said, I think we need to keep it up to 3. But we can call it a committee if there's 3. We can call it a representative if there's 1. We can call it, but at this point, I guess I would take if people are interested. This committee, I'm anticipating, will start meeting in July and probably like an every other week type. And what we would do is review some of the communications topics and communication things. And obviously, I'd be informing the board like I did last fall as well, but this would allow that involvement to be there. So is there anybody that might be
Well,
interested?
and are you thinking though, like an earlier meeting time, like a 4 o'clock or something, so it's not?
Or during the day. We would
Or
work with
during the day.
people, whoever, it depends on who would come forward. Because I know that Ashley does have some during the day kind of availability times, and if she'd be
Daytime's
interested.
easier for me.
Yes,
Yes,
and
I'd be
Lynette Day
interested.
comes easier. So, those types of things. So I would try to work with some of those individuals, but I do think that to have that involved would be a wise choice. So if there's anybody
But
off the
Probably
top,
would be evenings, 2 days.
I am trying to stay away from
Yes.
evenings because there will be enough evening stuff going on during this time. At least for me personally, going out and about and doing things, because that's how that goes. So I'm hoping to do afternoonish
So do
or
you
during
want
the day.
somebody just to reach out to you?
Yeah, that'd be
they're
great. Or if you
interested?
know right now, if people want a voice, if people are interested.
I'd be.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay.
And I don't do during
I
the
can
day.
bow out too, so.
Okay. So we've got.
It doesn't matter.
I can meet during the day, I can make it work, so.
Okay. So
4 of us. So any one of us can drop off, you pick.
Yep.
Any, many, money, one.
so.
Well, you can think about it. Maybe
Okay.
check availability of
Okay.
people and.
Or we have rotating members.
Well, so again, the biggest thing is I just want to make sure that everybody's informed and that we're all on the same page with that. So I don't want to look back on this and say if we would have only done this. I'm really trying to avoid that. And I don't know that you ever completely avoid it, but at least with our minds together. But also know that simultaneously, obviously, Stephanie, Robert, myself, this whole crew will be working on kind of proposals to bring forward to the group in terms of that as well. So, okay, I will let people know. I'll maybe work with Tanya. And we'll just kind of know that those people are interested, and we'll just
Oh,
kind
we
of
should
go from
probably
there.
ask Lynette too.
We should probably ask them that too. So there's that. Also,
The whole board's interested, you can just do it as a committee or work session.
yeah, we could.
That'd be a lot of meetings.
That'd be a
That's a lot.
lot of meetings. That's
But
my only issue. I was
That
hoping for
committee can like bring it back to
Yeah,
a work session.
Right.
Right.
Well, no, I know, yeah.
So let me process that with Tanya. We'll get back to the members and we'll try to figure that out and see if we can get to the bottom of it. I want to just kind of go through, obviously, a little bit of a lighter calendar, but I do have some items. Obviously, we've got Spudfest happening. I want to remind everybody that Spudfest Family Night is tomorrow. I will be flagging down for the bike rodeo. I always stand in the middle of the road and hope not to get hit. No, they always have police officers there, but it's the kid bike rodeo and parade and all kinds of things, ECFE and the fair and all kinds of pickleball tournaments and things. So please, I would encourage not only the board members, but also members of the community to participate at Spudfest because there is action-packed this weekend and it kicks off tomorrow night. July 4th, offices are closed. Policy Committee, Kim and I were reviewing briefly some of the latest legislative updates. There are a few things, but most of them are minor one-read type things. Right now, I am targeting July 15th as a potential Policy Committee meeting. But what I may do is get the policies and send them out. I don't know that if it's one read, maybe we could just kind of do I'm good with moving those forward. If anybody wants to discuss it further.
I'm out of
we'll pull
town
it.
that week, so.
Okay. So how about I will maybe send to the policy committee. I will figure out a way to solicit what your thoughts are if we want to meet or not on the 15th after you review the policies. Does that sound fair?
I looked through the policy newsletter, if
It-
that's what you're going off.
I
of,
will.
and it was,
It was very minimal.
yeah, I hadn't